So I slapped on this issue of what happened when I called the police yesterday on my security guard post. Now I'm used to at these other posts when you call the police, they're just unless someone's like bleeding or has had a heart attack or isn't breathing or someone's giving CPR or there's like an assault going on and it's still going on. I don't know. There's a gun or a knife. They just have other things to do and they're not ill tempered on the phone. The dispatchers, but they're just like they'll be short with you if you have it's a normal human question, but the way they phrase this to me, like whatever thing you ask is a normal question, they're like, "Sir, we have other things to do." Okay. Like I called one time because this lady was drunk at the front gate where I was working at this gated community. She was demanding to be let in because she lived there, and I was refusing. That was a fun little fiasco for like 2 months. Every time she drove through, the whole guard crew was ordered by our account manager to hide me in the middle of the building, and then she'd start driving circles around the building, and she'd talk, and then another car would come up and she'd talk, and all she'd do is talk crap about me. It was funny. Um, yeah, I just refused because there was a wedding going on inside, and I didn't want her to mow down all the wedding guests. What she did was she snuck in the other back gate. They have transponders on, and they can go through a specific gate that opens up automatically. But when you come through the other gate, we're supposed to like not let people come through when they're drunk. But she is trying to stand on the issue of I can come through anytime I want. Here's my passcode. And I didn't recognize her, nor did I recognize the license plate wasn't in the system. She had some new car. Like she made sure to let us know about how we can never make enough money to drive her Lexus. We looked at it, it was like $27,000. Like, okay, yeah, most of us spend less than $27,000 on our cars. But she was just in rare form. In her defense, her mother had just passed away. And so she was being a super drunk jerk, like, for several months. Like, but she went in the other gate and went up to the wedding, like in the drive circle where the clubhouse at the country club is. And people were like, "Oh, are you our Uber?" She's like, "Yeah, get in." She was all drunk. These people get in her car, and she just drove them in circles around the country club. Like, literally kidnapped some people under false pretense and wasn't taking them anywhere. Like like what a bad call I made, thinking to call the police and not let her in. She did some other stuff like the next month. She like crashed a couple parties that she wasn't invited to, all drunk. She claimed to be an undercover FBI agent. I don't know. She was like going crazy on medication and stuff. Um, like she flashed our old boss once. Outrageous stuff happens at country clubs. But so yesterday at not a country club, this guy was pulling this lady's hair. And so I asked ChatGPT last night because when I called the police, uh, they said the people had already driven off. And they said, "Do you want us to send a car out?" I go, I don't know. I just want to go on record in case she calls you and wants to press charges. I'll be a witness. I saw this guy get out of his front seat of his car, open the the seat to the door to the back seat, start pulling her by her hair and her arms to pull her out of the car. She wouldn't get out. She's like, "Da, da, da." And then so he gets in the front, he slams her door, gets in back in his driver's seat, and starts bam, 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 like hitting her on the top of her head. And so I called the police. Like, holy crap! I guess I could have maybe put the dude under citizen's arrest, but that'd be a fiasco. And I was within an hour of leaving work. That wasn't really my thinking. It wasn't the self-centered part of like, oh, I'd have to deal with like explaining this to everybody. The security guard business I work for, the bank, the bank's lawyers, our lawyers, the police, the prosecutors. Like, this would be a fiasco if I put this guy under citizen's arrest. But I walked towards them with I put this little camera on. And I don't have a body camera anymore. I'm used to having a radio where I have quick radio response to an HQ, and then a body cam that I can just turn on. This other thing, it takes like a half a minute to turn it on. Um, and I just didn't get it on instantaneously. So, and I don't have my gun on this post. It's like all these things. Like having a gun, I'd actually be less inclined to put someone under citizen's arrest. Because there's more issues. I'm way more passive, and I mean, I'm still firm but fair, but like being assertive to someone like, hey, no, you can't drive through the front gate. I don't know what I'd do if I had a gun on my hip at that point, at that other post, but this post, so I walk towards the guy, and then they just drive off, and I go, oh, crud. So I called the police, and they're like, what do you want us to call? To send a car out? And I just didn't understand the question. So I talked with ChatGPT last night, and I asked him this. I said, is getting out of a driver's seat of a parked car and opening the back seat door and attempting to pull a passenger out of the back seat by their hair a felony in California? In California, because to put someone under citizen's arrest, the main rule is that you have to know a felony's been committed in front of you. I guess you can do it with misdemeanor. I didn't really actually know that. I thought it had to be a felony. I really don't know that because this is ChatGPT. So this is what ChatGPT said. In California, the scenario you described could potentially be charged as a felony, depending on the specific circumstances. Pulling someone by their hair with the intent to harm or intimidate could be considered assault or battery. If there is any significant injury or if the act was particularly violent, it could escalate to a felony. Additionally, if the act involves force or violence with the intent to cause harm, it could potentially be charged under laws related to assault causing bodily injury or false imprisonment, especially if the person was being forcibly restrained or moved. I didn't get into the fact like they then drove away. So at that point, maybe he was trying to pull her out of the car, but maybe she was going to then get out of the car after he got in the front seat, and then she didn't, and then he drove away. Like, was this a kidnap almost? I'm sure a good prosecutor who really wanted to nail this dude could charge like two different types of kidnap. For trying to pull her out of the car is one type of kidnap. Moving someone's physical body, which rolling domestic violence fights like this, when people live in their cars, are probably the craziest set of concepts all put together because it's like their domicile, but it's not. It's a moving vehicle on the roadway. And they're all hella territorial, and they have their stand your ground issues just psychologically. I don't know what they're fighting about. They do come into the bank. They quarrel all the time. It's just like somehow they just like got into this fight. It looked pretty bad. He was like like 10, 12 times. I don't know if he actually connected though. If he's just like if they're it's not what you like. You can't do that in society. But so the exact charges would depend on the level of force used, any resulting injuries, the intent behind the action. I guess. So I wrote next. I'm a security guard on private property, and this happened right in front of our property today, and I was not sure if a citizen's arrest was called for. And well, now it gives me a lecture about what I am as a security guard. Okay, ChatGPT, I didn't do anything. Like, you're really okay as long as you're like walking towards someone telling them not to do what they're doing, and you get it on camera and you document it so that your security guard patrol isn't liable for not doing anything and your client isn't liable for not having a security patrol that does something. It leaves you wanting to have different architecture of properties, different equipment, different communications, different policies, different reports, right? But like, it is security. That is how it works. As a security guard, you generally have the authority to perform a citizen's arrest in California, but only under specific circumstances. A citizen's arrest can be made if you witness a felony being committed. I thought dragging someone out of a car was definitely a felony, But then it just seemed like, okay, someone would make the argument because I know they're quarrelsome as two people who maybe are, maybe aren't in a romantic relationship. They're like almost 70, right? This is a sad, sad thing. Like they do weird stuff in our bank parking lot all the time. They're always arguing. You have reasonable cause to believe a felony has been committed. You witness a misdemeanor being committed in your presence. In the situation described, the following factors would help determine if a citizen's arrest was justified. Like, this is quick stuff. Like, I couldn't even actually walk all the way over there. I stopped like 30 feet away and was like using the camera, but they were already done with their slapping fight. Was it a felony? Attempting to forcibly pull someone out of a car by the hair could potentially be a felony if it involves significant force, injury, or intent to harm. Example, assault or false imprisonment. Was it a misdemeanor? Even without significant injury, such an act might constitute battery or disturbing the peace if it caused public alarm. It caused public alarm. I mean, is that, but I wasn't thinking about that at all. Immediacy and safety. Did the situation present an immediate danger? If the passenger was being harmed, a citizen's arrest might have been appropriate to protect them. Were you equipped to intervene safely? I mean, this would just be another fiasco in my life. I feel like I'm lacking in chivalry and care for other people, but you can get injured, get all kinds of legal consequences, get fired, get sent on leave with no pay. Like, were you equipped to intervene? I hate that those are the things that come to mind, but that's what happens if you ever lost pay for any amount of time. There's a reason why it's there. Were you equipped to intervene safely? As a security guard, your role is to observe, report, and act within your authority without endangering yourself. I felt like that was a lecture last night when I read it, but it's not. Private property considerations. Even though the incident occurred outside your property, you are generally empowered to act as a private citizen in cases where public safety is at risk. However, this depends on your employer's policies and training guidelines for handling situations off property. Recommendations for future situations. Call law enforcement immediately. If you suspect a felony or believe someone's safety is at risk, report the incident to the police and provide detailed descriptions. Document the event. Record any details, including descriptions of individuals, vehicles, and actions taken. Be cautious with physical intervention. Citizen's arrest can expose you to liability if not executed properly or if the arrest is later deemed unnecessary. Right. So I didn't do anything. I didn't do it. It's crazy. If he had like started to pull her all the way out and like smacked her when one of her feet was on the ground, I probably would have just run over and hit the guy. See, that's the thing. The difference between an arrest and hitting some dude, like use of force to defend someone, and versus putting them actually under arrest. I could have run over and grabbed his keys out of his ignition. That would have been good. If the act was aggressive or appeared criminal, such as an assault, notifying law enforcement immediately and providing witness testimony would be the safest and most effective course of action. That is what I did. I did not attempt a citizen's arrest and call police, but they had driven off by the time. You handled the situation appropriately by prioritizing safety and calling the police. Thank you, ChatGPT. I have been a security guard for several years. In incidents like this, especially when they happen quickly, it can be difficult to assess whether a citizen's arrest is warranted or safe to attempt. Here's why your approach was the right one. Safety first. Engaging physically with someone in such a volatile situation could have escalated the conflict, putting you or others at risk. By calling the police, you ensure the matter was reported to those trained to handle such incidents. Documentation is key. If you are able to gather any details such as license plate number, descriptions of the individuals involved, or the make and model of the car, sharing this with the police will help them investigate further. 3. Role as a security guard. Your primary responsibility is to observe, report, and protect the property and people within your assigned area. Since the incident occurred outside the property, your decision not to intervene physically aligns with your role and limits liability. Yeah. Welcome to the corporation. I love you. It's like idiocracy. For future situations, consider the following. Log the incident. Make a detailed report for your records and your employers. Include the time, location, descriptions of those involved, and any actions taken. Be ready to assist law enforcement. If the police request additional information or witness testimony later, your observations could be critical. Review protocols. If this type of incident is common near your property, it might be worth discussing response protocols with your employer to ensure you're equipped and prepared for similar situations in the future. You acted prudently and responsibly. Letting law enforcement handle the situation minimizes unnecessary risk. Okay, so this is where ChatGPT maybe gives me a lecture. I went on to explain what happened on the phone call with the dispatcher. The dispatcher asked if I wanted a car to come out, and I said no, but left my name and number and phone number in case the lady called them and she wanted to press charges so I could be a witness. Would my having asked for a car to come out have caused there to have been an official police report and maybe an investigation to any higher level of probability than just a phone call? ChatGPT, yes. Requesting a police car to come out would have likely resulted in a more formal and thorough response, including the possibility of an official police report and a higher chance of an investigation. Here's why. One, the presence of officers on scene. Evidence collection is part of that. If officers had responded to the scene, they might have looked for evidence such as surveillance cameras, witnesses, or physical signs of the altercation. Documentation. Police would typically generate a formal incident report when responding in person, even if the suspects were no longer on the scene. Enhanced investigation. When officers physically respond, the incident might be prioritized differently. Their presence allows them to assess the situation more directly, which could lead to identifying possible charges or launching an investigation. If the woman called the police later, having an officer already involved and a report started would have provided continuity for the case. 3. Witness reliability. By being on site, officers could immediately gather detailed witness statements, including yours, which is critical for accuracy in building a case. Without officers on the scene, your statement might rely on memory or be seen as less immediate evidence. Police discretion. When responding in person, officers might have determined whether a more serious crime such as assault or attempted kidnapping was committed and acted accordingly. A phone call, in contrast, might result in the dispatcher leaving the situation unresolved unless further complaints or calls arise. See, that's what I feel like I did. I left it to where the dispatcher's just busy, but probably talking with one of the guys who. Then there were 3 police cars right there. I thought they were then dispatched out. No, we're right next to Starbucks. They're there to get their coffee. Well, I just didn't. I thought about walking over there, but I didn't want to bug them in their coffee break. Man, there's a lot of considerations other than, wow, this lady just got slapped around that all come to mind. I feel like she and this dude are always together and are always arguing, and she either needs to get away from him or not. And I don't know. Man, I don't know. It goes against this thing. I feel like he's in the wrong. Okay. And something needs to happen. Maybe that was like the peak argument they've ever gotten into, though. What if that's it, and I just happen to be like just Johnny Gung Ho security guard about making observations and reports? No. What happens without an officer responding? When no officer comes out, the dispatcher logs the call, but it might not escalate to an investigation unless additional witnesses report the same incident. The victim, the woman in the car, files a formal complaint or calls the police later. If someone's raped, they don't have to press charges, and the prosecution will go through something. Maybe this is like the same thing where she'd be like, "No, I don't want anything like this dissimilar and similar at the same time." Recommendations for the future. Request officer presence. Oh, okay. ChatGPT said to do it. I'm going to do it. AI bias. This is the answer because the AI said it. Request officer presence If the situation involves violence, harm, or a potential crime in progress, it's generally best to request officers to come to the scene, even if the suspects leave. Document everything. In cases where you decline officer presence, provide the dispatcher with all details, including descriptions and license plates, to assist in any follow-up investigation. Follow up yourself. If you later feel the incident wasn't handled fully, you can contact non-emergency police line to ask if additional steps can be taken. Your decision to leave your contact details was still helpful, as it shows your willingness to assist as a witness if needed. However, requesting officers to come out might have led to a stronger initial investigation. I'll just wait till next time they show up at the bank and call the police right then, when the guy goes in the bank, and ask the police to come over if the lady's in the car. That would be good and real awkward situation causing to where I won't have to deal with it any further than that. That would be good. I dislike how they behave. The guy gave me a freaking lecture like right in my face. He's like, "You need to open the door for people more." Oh, really? Maybe you need to not slap the women in the back seat of your car. Homeboy's got one coming.